So I put as the title for those next 15 minutes of some case studies. I will share with you some notes on the art language dealing with socialist narratives, Western modernism, and locally specific contexts revisited. So this question of revisiting our past, our socialist period art, which is inevitably containing a number of complexities. First, how to see the entangled artistic and political relations from today's perspective. Second, how to see it in a broader regional and international context, and which lenses to choose. For example, question about the center and peripheries, which follow or echo the processes from the center with some delay, or instead to choose this approach of horizontal histories with different chronologies, specificities, and so on. Another complexity, how to deal with the shifting perspectives, for instance, currently more and more present debates about the need to decolonize our knowledge. In all these aspects, post-socialist lens, but even more the entanglements between post-socialist and post-colonial perspectives can be useful, as they can help to form more nuanced views, for instance, about relations between what sometimes is called conformist or non-conformist, official or non-official art. And these entanglements also help to understand how contemporary transformations affect our understandings about these pasts. And especially in the light of current political events, we are reminded that our relations with the past is not neutral. It contains many difficulties, including historical traumas, sometimes amnesia regarding the past as a choice, but also disagreements, contradictions, simplifications, and so on. And these complexities aren't less present also in terms of geographies. Even though we can speak about shared histories in the Baltics, for instance, also using the lens of exhibition histories, not always these regional connections have been included in the research about our socialist periods. And for instance, the Baltic regional exhibitions, which support connections and specific positions of the Baltics, which was still controlled and quite unifying art policy, but at the same time separatist structure for the artistic life in our region. And also in terms of artistic matters or artistic expressions, these exhibitions provide an interesting perspective through which to explore how traditional ideologically correct aesthetics slowly intertwined with the tendencies of modernization of or new type of imagery. So these are basically pretty random images I chose from the exhibitions, which were these regional Baltic exhibitions as Tallinn print triennals, Riga sculpture quadriennals, and these are the exhibition covers. Catalog covers and some artworks. In this case, they are from the Tallinn print triennals from end of 60s and end of 70s, but they also clearly show how this, through the official art exhibitions, much more modernist, modernizing art language was adapted or integrated in official systems, and how artists found breaches in the system and camouflaged also more alternative practices in the what was brought as a kind of these agendas from Moscow or from the centralized views. And exhibition histories indeed is in very important perspective how we can revisit our past, and definitely also exhibition which is currently and is not on view at Kumu. Thinking Pictures provides such a close-up of revisiting recent art history from the socialist period, creating dialogues between local and regional art specificity and the international art phenomena. So I chose to talk about or introduce some of the artworks which are in this exhibition, but also bringing in dialogue some other episodes from Latvian art history, which in a way may form a dialogue with these artworks. So if you would also when Anu and Lisa approached me with this invitation to help with research about conceptual art in Latvia, the very first kind of reaction would be that, was there any conceptual art in the 70s in Latvian art? And then it's like the first action would be that no, there was not, because all the very principles which are essential for the conceptual art, like dematerialization, textuality, idea as an artwork, they're very too radical in the circumstances of isolation from the international art world, and also the context of growing such art or raising such art was completely different. But at the same time there were artists who were calling themselves conceptualists, and one of them was Jānis Borgs. And here, as one of the image, you can see the letter which was written by a friend of Jānis Borgs, Valdis Āboliņš. Valdis Āboliņš was living in West Germany, and got acquainted with Jānis Borgs in 1973. And so this quote, the very first letter they started to exchange for several decades. So he's saying, I was really surprised by the boldness with which you call yourself a conceptualist. Moreover, it seemed to me that you, especially when looking at your graphic works, don't have any great nose of what here is called conceptual art. And here, of course, he means West. Perhaps your understanding of the notion conceptualist is differently perhaps you understand the notion of conceptualist different to me, but if that's not the case, I would like to point out now that this letter it's minimalistic in its formal treatment, but conceptual in its treatment of form. There you are. And it's so he, in a way, he brings already then these very different perceptions of art processes, of art works, of art principles in contemporary art at that time. And in a way also, like, he calls it almost like, he says, it seems that you don't have great nose, but in a way the same situation also becomes very reversed. Also occasion how Āboliņš and Jānis Borgs meet each other is that Valdis Āboliņš, this emigre Latvian, comes to Riga for the first time in 1973 in order to organize exhibition in Düsseldorf. And the reason why he's interested to organize such exhibition is that he's trained as architect, but being very active as curator also in Fluxus and neo-avant-garde scene in West Germany. But with 1968 movement, he became increasingly driven by Western Marxism, critical theory, and ideas of the new left, and believed that art and culture must be political. And his belief is that he can find political art in the Soviet Union and in Soviet Latvia. So he meets. He comes to Riga and sets up the show. The title of the show is 20 Realists from Soviet Latvia. And what's interesting is that it was organized in context of art and information per IKI, or Internationale Markt- und Aktuelle Kunst, in Düsseldorf, which was predecessor of Art Cologne fair, so completely commercial art fair. And from today's perspective, we definitely can say that this exhibition of Latvian 20 realist painters was the very first exhibition of contemporary art from Latvia to be shown outside of the Western Bloc during the years of Soviet stagnation and isolation. But anyway, his preconceptions about, and here you can see some of the artworks. So Āboliņš's preconceptions about Latvian art were quite different from reality. He was hoping to show in Düsseldorf art that relates to international socialism and that takes politically active stance. And he was also hoping to find in Latvian art, as he wrote, an alternative to Western art's dependency on capitalism, a progressive, politically and socially comprehensive art that is searching for new forms of expression. And with this exhibition, he wanted to engage in Marxist dialectical discussion on art from socialist bloc and confront Western stereotypes about it. However, what he could find in Riga was, as he later put it, uncritical orientation to Western approach to formal expression. So another interesting aspect is that when Āboliņš came to Riga with this wish to organize a large-scale exhibition. He couldn't do it as nowadays through some private contacts. So he was brought as like in a partnership in Riga to a committee for cultural relations with compatriots abroad, which was never declared officially, but in fact was the KGB affiliate with very clear ideological tasks. So at the end, the exhibition contained middle and young generation official, or like the artists which were fitting in this in the picture what could be represented internationally. And the only context of Marxist aesthetics that Abonch hoped to bring to the fore in Düsseldorf was the fact that it was realist art. But as we can see, these realist artworks were revealing the slow transformations in the art of that time, following the general lines of the art system. Although some of the artworks strongly departed from this official course of socialist realism, and the biggest debate was about artist Maija Tabaka, who was bringing rather surrealistic modes in her work. And it's also very ironic that, for example, this one of the works, double portrait of sculptors Arte Dumpe and Valde Blunava, we can clearly see that this is almost like abstract sculptures which the artists are doing, but the painting, of course, is realist. So this case study comments on these different perceptions on art in our history from inside and also from outside, and how international dialogues as well as local official art scenes, this art language was hybridized. Also in terms of its aesthetics, but also in terms of its perceptions. And so here I will continue with the artist who had no great nose of conceptualism, so Jānis Borgs, and very quickly just two works of his. Here you can see the triptych poster Chile, which was. It's interesting that it was shown in official exhibitions and was even celebrated as very brave modernist gesture. And we can see that his focus is on visual image, how it's built through geometrical forms, this repetition of parallel and diagonal rectangles that create impression of spatial illusion and dynamics that echo not less than a revolutionary theme, namely the Codeta in Chile in 1973. And as later we spoke with Jānis Borgs, he was very proud about this possibility to bring such a modernist artwork in official art exhibitions. But when I was asking about the subject, about the theme, and also like looking for these international relations, what Inga was mentioning in her presentations, solidarities or in a way friendships or comradeship with other socialist bloc countries, he was actually not willing to continue the conversation in that direction, saying that it was just a completely compromised theme in order to be free in his artistic expression. And here, basically, you can see that this is works, or you can guess that these are works by the same author, even though the context is different. And here, these are the works which are at this point not visible, but are part of Thinking Pictures exhibition. And Jānis Borgs mentions these works as clearly conceptual, saying that this was here he repeats the graphic lines in. According to automatic coincidence, and that he as author is basically pseudo-author. He draws graphic lines based on the numbers and is compiling as if it would be done by a computer program. The numbers and intervals of lines were made according to this number of dice and executed mechanically. Interestingly, that he could show this work also publicly, even though the context was different. It was artist educators' show where basically his work was ridiculed as a strange joke that no one really understood. And in that sense, the conceptualism really was not present in Latvia. But today, when when more and more studies are revisiting art histories from perspectives which oppose the dominance of Western art, these are very interesting examples to see how the same artist could use could bring in their works the narratives which contain completely different, or we could say even politically not opposite, but areas which were not in direct relation, but still somehow trying to find the kind of canal or the way how to bring into the scene to completely different kind of perspectives. Yeah, like, of course, it's very interesting, an important question, like about the connections with the regional connections, international connections. And even though Borges himself always refers that he went to Warsaw and it was the place where he learned about conceptualism, we can see, of course, very clear resemblances with conceptual artworks from the West, classical ones like Solovit, but also these regional similarities and definitely connections, as Borges had friendships with Estonian authors, and here, and also another work which is in Thinking Pictures exhibition, Raul Meel's work. So this interesting geometrization structures, it was in a way something similar to what Western artists had, but its kind of deviation point was completely different. And so another example in what we have in the exhibition is works by Valdis Celms, and again visually very similar, but in the message completely different stories. So the work Greece was in this case the work was not shown in public exhibitions, but in art academies, we could say insiders exhibition. It was referring to the Kudeta in Greece in 1967 when the far-right military junta came to power, and in his case, as he interprets it nowadays, that it was made as solidarity gesture with the country and with the victims of the far-right junta, and we can clearly see that this is the Greek flag, and it is also the colors are covering the head of Niobe, this ancient queen who in Greek mythology symbolizes eternal grieving. But as he says that he was at the same time also interested in aesthetics of pop art, thought not so much in this decorative mode, but the forms which are developing more through the structures. So in this case, it's solidarity with an essentially political message, even though it was not kind of commissioned by someone. And again, visually, we can recognize that it is the same author, the work Prague Cathedral, which was where this geometrization is basically hiding the message. So the Prague Cathedral was made as a gesture after Prague Spring, and even though the work was realized very soon after these political events, no one really guessed that the work is talking about and in a way opposing those political events, as he always also emphasizes that these grids and this photo montage is referring to this very rich heritage of Czech culture, Prague Baroque, and with these grids as prison barns interrupting them. So again, like if you compare it with Western classical, if you can say so, conceptual art, we can see, for example, that it's he's engaging the photography as an artistic medium, which was, of course, shaking the current art language. We can recognize some similarities, for example, with Daniel Biren or John de Betz. But of course the context is completely different, and it's searching for the sources or the artist's interest. It wouldn't be enough just to rely on these very general global or Western-oriented conceptualisms. And similar is also about this pollutionist work, where Borgsen and also Valdestamso were among the authors, which were referring to this very early Russian or Soviet avant-garde art, in this case Gustav Klutz's photomontages, but where these motifs they are using in a kind of completely opposite narration or opposing quite openly the system, and also in this case the artwork was shown publicly and was reproduced in newspapers of the main cultural magazine. And here, the very last image, just showing that connections between the Baltic artists were very present. So in the middle, you can see also Leonhard Lapin among the Valdestams, Jānis Borgsen and Māris Ārgalis, the artists who were behind the pollutionist group. So I also understand that I've been exceeding the time, so I'll just leave loose ends with this case. These artworks asking a lot of questions and probably allowing also to find very different answers to them. So thank you.